Welcome to Normal Movie Monday.
In
It's
a hot
been
second.
3,000
We're
years.
not doing Thanksgiving Day movies, Ellen.
Are there even any? Like, I don't know. What would be a
There
thing?
probably aren't a lot, and they're probably not that great.
Let's all, yeah, let's all watch like Hallmark movies. No, it's not. Uh,
Lifetime movies.
Barf. Okay, no. We watched Edge of Tomorrow, which I had seen once, mm, sometime during college, probably 2015, 2016 ish.
So
Uh,
around when it actually came out.
yeah, I know I did not
Hmm.
see it in theaters. I saw it legally at home. Anyway, whatever. And I my it was one of those where I'm like, it was pretty good. But then I kind of was curious to see it again and also to see your opinions of it. Um, and I think my opinion is basically still kind of the same as it was. It's I think because okay, the base premise of this, if you don't know, and even then this is shown very early, is that the main guy who is Tom Cruise. Well, I'm just going to call Tom Cruise because why not? Okay, there's an alien invasion going on, and he gets stuck on the battlefield basically, and due to stuff that happens, he ends up sort of he sort of resets the day whenever he dies. So
Yeah, he ends up in like a time loop of
yeah,
sorts.
so he keeps
Hmm.
his memories, but nobody else does, right? And so it's sort of like, okay, how do we sort of deal with this? How do we actually like defeat these aliens who seem to like know what's going on in advance, and you know all that kind of stuff. And so to me, at least, like the premise is just kind of inherently fairly interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I fully admit though that I am kind of like I'm a sucker for sort of kind of weird time stuff and like alternate timeline stuff. I don't know. I'm just like that's kind of a thing that I just generally like in general. But I think what helps because the main issue with a story like this is it could feel like repetitive, right? Because that's kind of
Hmm.
the point. And I don't think it does because it's sort of they shift the focus about because as he learns and as he keeps doing this or whatever, he realizes what actually needs to be done. So
And
things
it
shift around.
progresses the story as it goes too. It's
Hmm.
not
Right.
like him reliving the day. It's more of like you see snip. It's like hitting the fast forward button, I guess.
Yeah, and like,
Like,
and not only just in terms of like the actual story, but also like in terms of from like a movie experience, it's like things feel different as you go through,
Hmm.
and like the focus changes and that kind of stuff too. So I think that holds up. One thing that I do really appreciate is that the vast majority of the action scenes are in the day, and it's not cutting
Yeah, thank
every
God.
half second. So like basically
yeah.
the one time the kind of the I guess the final one is at night, which is a bit hard to see, but the others are quite good. It actually I think that does help because the alien designs of this I think are really interesting. They're like
Yeah.
wiry. I don't know. They're very odd, but it helps to have it be odd and stand out in that way. It's not.
Like the Omega thing kind of reminds me of like a flower sea anemone kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, or that oh, what's it called? The the
Mm.
one the flower that grows on the back of Venusaur. That flower.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So their design is cool. The action itself is just, pretty good. Um, Again, largely because you can actually see what's going on. And I mean, I don't think the characters are great, but you do definitely, they work. You see uh, you see character growth development, especially Tom Cruise's character. Goes from sort of the, kind of
Oh, on
selfish person into not that.
one one random note with Tom Cruise. So his character in the film, I don't remember what his first name is, but his last name is Cage. So I kept thinking that they were going to that his name was Nick Cage.
Oh my God.
It was Tom Cruise.
That would be really funny if they actually did that.
That would be a different movie. Trying to imagine Nicolas Cage now in this
Oh
role
my God.
does not work.
City of Angels.
Oh God. Yeah. But
But
what did you guys think about what was going on?
so admittedly going into this my expectations were really, 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 really low. Because I was like, okay. We kind of know how these like alien invasion movies work and stuff like that. So I was like, okay. maybe I'll work on my research paper a little bit even. But so I had like the window on the side and I was working on my paper. And then as time went on, I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting. And then as I ended up not actually working on my research.
Screw your paper.
And I was watching it instead, and I think the time loop definitely helped with that, because I feel like if they didn't include time loop, well, for one thing, it would be a far less like engaging story, because then it would follow every like invasion story basically, where it's like, okay, we know where the enemy is. Okay, we're gonna have this huge battle and everything. Bada bing, bada boom, defeat. Okay, yay for us, we did it. But because of the time loop thing, you actually kind of get to know like the environment and also learn more about the aliens and how they work and everything like that. And it changes its focus from being just an invasion story to like one very key element, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking like back to like Independence Day, where it's like, does anyone actually remember like the specific plot of Independence Day? Like,
Not really.
no, you know, again, we didn't even like think it was that bad, but it's like that's not the point, that's not the focus, right? Where here it's like the plot and the characterization is the focus, with the alien stuff in the background, and also having
That's
some
the
pretty good action
vehicle
as well.
to drive it.
Yeah.
On.
And I think I really appreciated that, because I feel like if it was more centered on like the alien invasion, I would have admittedly gotten more done with my research paper. I also found it interesting that, as opposed to like most other invasion stories, that like, you know, Independence Day, you saw like the White House get destroyed, but here it actually took place in Europe. And I also found the references to like World War II interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
that.
like the whole Normandy thing in that, but like besides that though, they don't do like you said, they don't like, you know, they don't destroy like the Eiffel Tower, or you know what I mean. They don't go there, right?
They're just on some random field or beach or something, and you know, no one really knows where they are.
The Louvre at the end.
Yeah.
And it's at night, so you don't really get to see anything like the artwork. Maybe that's why they put it at night, so that they didn't have to like try to recreate the artwork and then destroy it. Sacrilegious.
Omega really appreciate artwork for whatever reason. It actually was here on a tourist vacation.
All the alphas and the drones were just like disgruntled artists.
Yes.
No one appreciates our work.
They wanted to get the Mona Lisa, and then it
couldn't break through the glass.
Give us UBI so we can live off our artistry.
So I read a little bit on Wikipedia too, and apparently
I was gonna say that this is based off of a Japanese light novel, because I was actually gonna draw a small comparison, because I was watching this and I was like, oh, it's a time loop. I am intrigued, and then I was like, I don't know, that seems like a very I haven't like watched a ton of like American cartoons or things like that to know if like the time loop is also just an American thing too, but it's very prevalent in like Japanese media, like ReZero, which is not great, sorry. And one of my favorite stories. So in the beginning I was thinking, oh, this is kind of like if Holes crossed over with Higurashi. Oh my god. Because like Guy gets sent to like basically like a boot camp and meets these misfit people who don't like him. Isn't that the premise of Holes?
Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense.
That was not what I was. That is not the comparison.
I guess maybe it's because like I particularly like Holes out of the three of us. But then when like more of the time loop stuff got introduced, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of like Higurashi. So I looked it up and I was like, oh, this is a Japanese light novel, the original one. Like the plot is probably not exactly the same, but yeah, Higurashi is one of, if not my favorite, like story and manga and stuff, and I would recommend it if you're not super squicked by gore. It's not like central, it's just that because of how things are, it gets a little bit violent. But yeah, I guess this is a very small thing of also maybe check out Higurashi. But yeah, I like the time loop, and that's what kept me invested. I was like, oh my god, are they gonna break the time loop? Because that's
Yeah.
always the thing. It's like, are they gonna break the time loop?
Yeah, I think
I
from
also found it interesting that the story continued a little bit even after the time loop too.
Oh yeah.
the ending. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the very end because like part of me almost thinks that it would almost be better if like
They
the
just
Omega
had
the
died.
Omega dies and then like that's the end. That's it. You don't see anything else. But instead we get this like 2 minutes of like oh it actually did work and then he goes and sees her and she's like the fuck do you want and he just like has this kind of weird laugh which like it is kind of a nice scene as like it's kind of weird but like it's kind of nice in that sense but it's like yeah I'm not sure like what I would actually prefer in that sense but um yeah, I don't know. It's something. But actually, I was gonna point because you said about like American versus like Japanese sort of like tropes or whatever. What I've noticed, and again, I'm not saying oh I'm a master of American cartoons or whatever. I don't know, but like from what I
You
have
have seen
seen,
more than I have.
right? So from what I've seen, it's not so much time loops, but I see fairly often like alternate timelines. Where there's like an episode of a
Right.
show where like something happens and all of a sudden, oh, here's an alternate timeline where like
That's
Superman
true.
is evil or
ATs are
something,
very
right?
yeah,
It's
ATs
like
are very
I also
common.
feel like usually with American cartoons, it's not so much a time loop as being able to stop time, slow down time, or speed up time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of like there's a bunch of superhero stuff that does that again, like Flashpoint and like several episodes of like Justice League that kind of do different things. There's a Ninja Turtles episode that does it that's like really good and really like fucked up actually, which is like how did they get away with this? Like good lord. There's I know I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So
not like time loops, more of like you're still
alternate
in
timelines, yeah.
alternate timelines, or you can like manipulate time where you can pause it.
Yeah,
You
and the lesson
basically have a
is just live life normally.
Yep. Like I think that was something that happened in Fairly Odd Parents. I might be wrong. Everything happened
my
in
god.
Fairly Odd Parents.
That's a show that went downhill after a while. Yeah, I'm always very interested to see time loops because like that also opens up the door of like how does that psychologically like affect a person, And
we saw that
if
with
we're
Tom Cruise too.
yeah, and if we're not doing spoilers, then there is another person who went through the time loop, but they're no longer in it. So that was also an interesting thing to see. That
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think Tom Cruise is like his character's sort of how he sort of changes his character through the time loop is interesting because at first he's just like completely confused, right? But then
yeah,
he's like, okay, I'm determined. I'm going to deal with this. I know what's going on. And then he sort of kind of like gives up for a moment and he's just like, no, I'm just going to leave. Like, fuck it. Like, what's the point, right? And then
yeah,
then he gets back into it. So it's interesting and it makes sense, like, because the implication is that he's literally gone through this like hundreds of times, right?
yeah.
So it makes sense that after a while you're gonna be like, what the fuck's the point at this point? So yeah, the only thing, and I'm thinking in terms of like plot that's a little weird for me is that because the whole thing is like, oh, he had a vision that like the Omega is like in like the German dam or whatever, right? And then it's
Yeah,
like,
did it move?
well, yeah, then it's like, oh, and it's actually just not there, and it's like, okay, why was this part of the story?
They like talked about it being like bait, but then how would they do that?
Yeah,
like...
it just felt like kind of like, what was the point of this whole plot point? I don't know. It just felt kind of weird. It's like, is it like, I don't know. It's not the worst thing, but it's just kind of, it's definitely a moment where it's like, wait, why did we do that? So
yeah, why is this a
yeah, but yeah, I do think this is better than just like pure kind of like standard generic action movie.
Yeah.
There is a thing here, and it's not just the premise; it's kind of what they do with the premise that I think at least makes it a bit more interesting than just sort of shoot alien rar.
rar?
But yeah, so okay, I guess I was roughly correct in my prediction then.
Yay!
See, you can't murderlize me yet.
No, not yet. I already kind of did that with Brazil.
Well, that
I
was
guess.
Okay. Well, that wasn't my fault.
Well, then again, we all hated Brazil, so it's fine.
Yeah, there was no I forgot what the premise of Brazil was now.
Well, also
I
the
like
whole point with Brazil for is not like, oh, here's a movie that I think like I'm gonna, that I like and I'm going to show you. It's just like I've heard people like this. Let's find out, right? So I didn't.
people are wrong. Sorry.
So
Well, in that case, it kind of burned all of us.
Yeah.
So
Then there was the movie that I still find it really hilarious how it's a movie that like none of us. It was a surprise for all of us.
Because you misremembered the title.
yep. Well, oh well. Well, are we good for ratings of this? I guess we have to
Yeah.
do ratings now.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we haven't done for like a month and a
Like
half.
6 weeks.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm decently confident, so I guess I should go first.
Okay.
Yeah, you're usually the confident one.
Well, I mean, it helps that I have seen this before.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
I was kind of curious, like, is watching this again going to change my opinion? And basically, no, right? So I came into this thinking, like, I think I would give this movie this number, and I'm coming away with this thinking I'm going to give this movie this number. So I've said that my general rule is that again, 5 is true neutral, 3 is standard bad, 7 is standard good, and I said that again, this is sort of better than standard action movie, so I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's a solid 8. There's more to it than you would think. Again, I'm not saying like you have to watch this, like, oh my god, it's amazing. But like if you're mildly curious by it and just say, hey, it's sort of a time loop action alien thing, and you're like, okay, and then like, yeah, I think it's worth to check out, and you probably won't hate it. So yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8.
I think summarily I'm going to give it an 8, where I did enjoy it a lot, and yeah, I'm happy you showed it to me, Val. And at some point I would not be against watching it again at some point.
I think if they had, I guess, done a little bit more with at least the 2 main characters. I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't do a ton with them. It's just that I didn't get super attached to them. So, like, if they did that, I would have easily given it like a 9. But yeah, I think I'm also gonna go with an 8.
I feel like this kind of story has potential for a 9.
Yeah.
If it was sort of like redone, but yeah, I think 8 is a fair assessment of it.
Yay! Triple 8s!
Yay.
Wait, did you know that apparently it's getting a sequel? I don't know how
Is it
that's
actually?
gonna work.
Wait, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, I don't know how that's gonna make any sense. But
The whole movie was all a lie. It was all a time loop within a time loop, and you did. I don't know.
It's a time loop meeting Inception.
Oh, good lord!
Yeah, there was like something about like a sequel.
Okay.
Don't ruin something that's already good, okay?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it one of those things where it's like actually in production, or is it just like this should happen, like, or what? I guess I can look as well.
In 2016, some person revealed that the film would revolutionize how people make sequels, and went on to say that the story is much better than the original film, and that it's a sequel that's a prequel.
Oh, good. How? Okay.
What? Okay. Watch Higurashi instead. Let's move on.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm just looking and seeing what it's saying.
It's still in the planning stages, apparently.
Okay, it says
As of January 2020.
Yeah, script is finished though. Well, see, one thing that I could see maybe work is but that's the thing is, it's literally saying that there's returning actors, so that doesn't work. But I was thinking, like, if they kind of somehow like told this story, but with like like the same events, but like through different people.
Yeah.
That could maybe work. I don't know.
There's 2 other ways that I can see it working, but only one of it works with the fact that there's returning actors. The only other, it says that it's a sequel that's a prequel. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to like tell like the woman's story, like when she was going through the time loops and everything.
We know the ending of that.
Right, and also how would that be there for a sequel? And also how would Tom Cruise be in that movie?
I don't know, he was shown at the end or something. The second thing is, which won't work out, is that it's actually a whole like different world. It's a different alien world that was not able to fight back the invasion and stuff like that. So
Oh,
you
so
could do
it's
it.
like an alternate timeline of the time loop almost.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
guess that could work.
I don't know, but then
Well,
it's like,
maybe the
I,
comet hit Mars instead or something.
or I
Don't
don't
ruin
know.
good things, guys,
Yeah, I just
okay?
feel like I'm just like, how can you do a sequel to this that's
You can't. It's
that
like a
either
complete
well,
story.
here's the either that makes sense because otherwise you could just think just doesn't make any fucking sense, or but the other issue is that like wouldn't the thing that you make just feel like just the same thing again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's like the
it
point of the
might
movie. So like
also.
I don't understand it.
I don't get it how it's supposed to work either.
Okay, well I don't know. Maybe I'll. Uh, I don't know.
Nani the fuck, guys.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know. It's like all the people saying like, oh, you know, there needs to be like a Joker sequel, and it's like, how you can't?
No.
How do you do that?
Like, literally, the only other thing they could do is if they made a straight movie of the original light novel, but there's no point.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe if it actually does come out, we'll see if it works. I don't know. I can't imagine it, but hey.
I mean, this year is 10 years long, so I don't know.
We're gonna be in 2030 at the end of this.
This
Yeah.
year feels like a time loop, okay?
Don't give
No, it
it any
doesn't
ideas.
feel like a time loop. It just feels like someone stopped time.
Well, I
See, it's
literally
the
just,
American trope.
just today, I actually was just looking on Reddit, and one of like the Ask Reddit things that popped up on the homepage was like, you wake up on January 1st to find that you've reset to the beginning of 2020 with your memories intact, and I'm just like, okay.
Oh no,
Oh,
a year-long time loop is cruel. Like, reliving an entire year.
Yeah.
God.
Well. Oh boy. Anyway, I don't want to think about that. What we do get to think about though is the next set of movies. So the next movie we're going to be doing.
yes.
Oh, it says Edge of Tomorrow was a random. We random it again, and we got a movie that is a little bit different in tone. We got Onward.
Yay.
A movie that did actually come out during COVID.
Yeah,
Yay.
exactly. None of us have seen this, right?
No.
Okay, yeah. So I've heard my general consensus I've heard is like it's on the slightly weaker side of Pixar, but like that's still pretty good. So, and you know, I've heard at the same time heard people love it. So I don't know. We'll find out at some point, I guess. But what are we getting this
For
time?
movie 50.
Oh yeah, this next up is movie 50, and we get. Oh boy!
Holy shit! I called it.
Oh, we get Man of Steel.
No.
I don't know how I feel.
I'm ready to laugh at this movie. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you know how I said like I put Edge of Tomorrow? I put that on the list primarily because again I was like, decent, saw it before, curious to see what people think about it. This is similar in concept, but I do not know how I'm going to feel about this movie watching it again. Because
this is like your Spider-Man,
right?
Like Amazing Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, kind of. Because again, I remember there are some things in it that I like and I think are legitimately good, and there are other things in it that I think are legitimately not good. So in terms of like how you actually mix that into a movie, in their overall opinion, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this again.
I'm just ready to laugh at Zod, okay?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything.
The one thing I know is like the thing that everyone knows, which is basically like Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man.
Super Raimi Spider-Man.
Because I just mentioned the Amazing Spider-Man. Zod gets like basically Superman breaks his neck or something.
I'll talk about that. So when you will see about that. But yeah, oh boy, Man of Steel. Oh boy.
Okay.
Hi.
I was kind of hoping it would be Casablanca.
I was kind of hoping that too, because didn't it come out in
It came out in the 40s, right?
Was it? I don't even know.
I just thought it'd be a nice bookend because, like, we would skip to, and then we'd be back in black and white. I thought that might be appropriate.
43 was Casablanca, but we don't get that. We get something in 2013. Man of Steel.
Oh boy.
You know what? I'm almost afraid to look. How long is it?
8 hours long.
I don't think it's that long, but it's
2.5 hours long.
probably about
Oh, fuck me.
Oh no.
about a little bit less than 2.5 hours. But yeah, well, that's what's coming next. Man of Steel. Get excited.
At least you're not making us watch BVS.
No, I would not do that to you.
Have you actually watched BBS?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to do it to myself.
Oh, okay,
Let alone
good,
make you do it. Again, I think there is something there are some positive things about Man of Steel. I will say that. Okay, so that's at least
There's
something.
nothing in BBS.
No.
No redeeming
There's
quality.
nothing redeeming about me.
Wait, is BBS the one where Superman dies at the end?
Yeah.
Or is that Justice League?
BVS, he dies. He dies. He's dead for real. The second movie in the DCEU is the one where Superman is dead forever. That's how that works. It's not, not that it's based off of Doomsday, which was like the whole thing about Superman dying and then not dying. No, it's just not that. No, he actually dies, guys. That's how it's gonna work.
It's like Superman dies and then Batman kills a bunch of people.
I thought Batman killed a bunch of people before Superman.
Look, we're not talking about BVS. We're talking about Man of Steel, and we're talking about Man of Steel next week. We could maybe talk about BVS after the two. Whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, we're done with this. We're getting out of this time loop and into the
BVS time loop.
Fuck. Okay. Whatever. Bye.